One of the most horrifying legends of South America is the Imbunche, a sort of witch's familiar created by the Brujo Chilote of Chile. The Brujo Chilote are some of the most powerful and dangerous warlocks in the world, working the blackest and most sinister magic from their elaborate cave networks. To guard themselves, they created the creature called Imbunche. These monsters were as powerful as they were terrifying. The Brujo Chilote would purchase or steal newborn babies from poor families. To start, they would de-baptize the baby. The baby would then have one of his limbs broken and twisted around his back. His tongue would be forked, and he would be fed black cat's milk and goat flesh before moving on to the flesh of human bodies freshly dug up from the earth. This would gift the baby with incredible strength and incalculable malice. Finally, the head would be twisted backward, and the mutilated appendage that had been bent backward would be sewn onto the poor creature's spine. Any who survived this ritual would become an Imbunche, forever bound to its creator. Imagine that you are exploring the wrong cave in Chile. From somewhere in the unyielding darkness, you hear a croaking, guttural moan. You shine your light to see the source of the sound, and something scuttles in the dark after you. Its eyes burn with rage, and it attacks you with inhuman strength. As you are beaten to death, the last thing you hear is the sound of inhuman screaming, and your final vision is of a pair of hateful eyes burning in a backwards head. La Sayona is a spirit from Venezuela who pursues unfaithful men. Dressed in a long white night dress, she stalks straying lovers, seducing them in the form of a beautiful woman. She will find lonely men, often by posing as a woman who asks strangers for cigarettes or a hitchhiker stranded on a lonely road. If any men fall for her seductions, she takes them. Any who go with her are never seen again. The legend goes that La Sayona was a young woman who had been told that her husband was having an affair with her mother. Overcome with rage, she found her husband at home asleep with their newborn child. She locked the house and set it on fire, burning her husband and baby to death. She then took a machete and attacked her mother in her home. As the older woman was bleeding to death, she cursed her daughter to spend eternity as a restless specter, punishing other men for their unfaithfulness. La Sayona is out there every night, outside of bars and clubs, anywhere weak and vulnerable men are likely to be found. She waits until the deepest part of the night, when her victims are the most intoxicated and vulnerable. As her victims make love to her, she reveals her true, rotted, skeletal face as her hands reach around their throats. The only way to ward her off is to keep loose tobacco in your pocket, or to stay faithful to the women that you love. The scars of colonialization linger on in history. Some of the most famous monsters had their start in fears of the other, the invader, the despoiler. For South American native communities, the Spanish conquistadors had a massive impact on their culture. It is natural that stories and legends would form from these encounters, and one of the most distinctive is the legends of the Pishtaco. A Pishtaco is an outsider with white skin who would capture natives for sinister uses. They consume native flesh, broil the fat for use, and skin them to make chicharrones. The name Pishtaco derives from the local language word pishte, which means to behead, cut the throat, or cut into slices. Much of the origins of the Pishtaco had its roots in the beliefs of indigenous people from Bolivia and Peru, and the way those beliefs were impacted after encountering the Spanish. Fat was considered a sign of health, as it proved that you had eaten enough and didn't have diseases which wasted away the body. The Spanish conquistadors would use human fat to treat wounds, and were said to have used fat to grease their cannons, which rusted in the Amazon climate. From there, the idea of the Pishtaco was born, white-skinned monsters capturing innocent natives and broiling them to capture their fats. Missionaries might be Pishtacos in disguise, oiling up their church bells for a more sonorous sound. Invading armies were creatures from nightmare, ripping people apart to get their succulent fats within.